Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy. So what do you have for us? To you.
So today is Harvey Miguel Robinson is our murdering piece of garbage.
That son bitch. That piece
No.
of trash.
Who is he, you ask? Harvey.
I did not, but sure, tell me.
You asked with your mind, okay? Harvey is among the youngest known serial killers. Over the course of a year, Harvey was able to break into a home and kill a grandmother while people slept upstairs, break into another victim's apartment in the summer when her windows were open, rape and attempted to murder a 5-year-old girl, kidnap and murder a girl on her newspaper route, and rape a woman who, by the way, will survive on her front lawn. All while under 18.
Huh. Okay. I don't know what to do with all that. You just went through it so fast. My brain doesn't process it. And I like how you tried to speed through that child there. And
I know. That was particularly my summary / triggering warnings for you.
You son bitch. Trying to sneak that one by.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to start with a little bit of background on Harvey. So.
Was there a head injury?
Well, yes and no, but we'll get there.
I knew it.
No, it's not what you think, but we'll get there because it's funny. So Harvey grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania in April 1974 to a troubled family. Now, psychiatrists will later say he's highly intelligent. He's got an IQ of 117. So it's one of these, he's not a moron. He could have done better with his life, but he grew up in a shitty environment, and that's what he's going to cling to as his reason for being bad.
It's a bunch of horse shit.
Sure is. But his father was an abusive alcoholic that went to jail for manslaughter after he beat his mistress to death with a blunt object in 1963. Now, I realize this is prior to Harvey's birth, but his father was sentenced to 6 to 12 years. So when he gets out, that's when he meets Harvey's mom. Yeah. I didn't look into that one, but it was just like that was his dad, just so you know. And by the way, his mistress was Marlene Perez. She was so badly bludgeoned in the face, police could hardly recognize her.
Poor woman.
Now, this is Harvey Sr., mind you. He was 32 when he was convicted of manslaughter. He also had a wife and 4 children in another town when he's doing that. So Harvey does have half siblings.
You like those cases where there's like the husband has a whole nother family or life in another town.
How do you figure?
Because you did that other one that was like early 1900s or 1800s. I don't remember. I'm saying is you like them their cases.
I don't. It just happens to be there's a lot of 2-timers out there. So be vigilant in your
selection.
I don't know. Keep an eye on them some bitches. Or here's a thought: if they seem shady, drop them like a bag of turds.
I thought it was a bag of potatoes, but okay.
Drop them like them too. Something that's heavy. Bag of rocks. Whatever you got a bag of that's heavy, drop them like that quickly.
You're so stupid.
You know what?
Don't mean go. Wait. This is not a. This is not even a PSA, by the way, to go stalk your significant other.
No,
because without a certain amount of trust,
I don't believe
the relationship is doomed. You got to have trust, and if you don't trust them, kick them to the curb.
I agree. So that's what I'm kind of saying. That it's just like if you're that suspicious or think that they're headed out or stepping out, then let them go on and get. You can do better. Drop them like a bag of turds or rocks or whatever pebbles you got in your sack there. Don't kill them. Just let them go on. Be grateful that you're done with that. There are better things out there. Anyway.
You got distracted there.
You sure did. But so that brings us to Harvey's mom, Barbara Brown. Now, she's 20 years younger than Harvey's dad. And they're married for about 2.5 years and then divorced when Harvey's still a young boy. Now, they divorced because Barbara said she wanted a better environment for her child.
Barbara married Harvey Sr., correct?
Uh-huh.
After he got out of prison for killing his girlfriend, correct?
Uh-huh.
I
People make
feel
mistakes,
like
Andrea. People make mistakes.
perhaps don't marry them. They're convicted killers.
Or
And then
abusive
question the bad.
alcoholics.
Or if you do, you don't get the right to question them their bad environment. Just get out. Anyway,
Although,
continue.
considering he bludgeoned his mistress to death and got 6 to 12 years, dang, the 60s and 70s were super lax.
They
Like,
really were. Like, oh my gosh. You killed somebody in a fit of rage. I realized it wasn't premeditated, but it was super violent.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
a lot of
anyway,
uncoolness.
so they divorced because Barbara will say she wanted a better environment. Now, despite his dad's murderous background, Harvey worshipped his Paul. Harvey's dad moves to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Harvey would visit him every 2 weeks. Now, when he would return home to his mother after the weekends with his dad, she would say he was uncontrollable and that his father would allow him to do anything he wanted. So when he would get home, he wouldn't follow any of his mother's rules, which I feel like that's not new information. Like,
but
I
at the
feel like
same time, I think that's a lot of issues that a lot of kids have, especially today, where you've got two households, they're not co-parenting correctly because
or
it's
at
obvious.
all.
Yeah, and then the kids take advantage and there's an adjustment period of kids just act out when they go back to the other household. What especially if it's the more strict household because there's rules.
Yeah. Now, Barbara will recall one time Harvey threw a can of soda out the car window when it was moving. Now, she'll scold him, but he replies that his dad will throw beer cans out his car window. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so many things wrong with this. Like, can you imagine the mother being like, he does what? Man, Paul drinks his beer all the time driving.
Yeah, the drinking and driving, there's just so much. Okay. How old was Harvey? Do you know? Like elementary school?
Yeah, I would say right around like 9-ish.
That's about the time that they've got them big mouths on them, 6 to 10, I'd say.
And don't realize they're ratting people out.
Yep.
So Harvey would tag along with his older half brother when he had to report to the juvenile probation office, because naturally these are a lot of bad seeds in this family. But later, Harvey would visit those same offices when he's on probation for his own cases. Now, his first charge was when he was 9 years old for shoplifting, and this would be the start of all the petty crimes that he'd commit throughout his childhood.
What was he stealing?
I don't know. Stupid shit. Probably little kid things that he wanted it, so he took it. It's not to survive, no. So the juvenile probation employees would later describe Harvey as a very manipulative young boy. He would know all the right things to say and to do or get what he wanted. And now he would do this in school as well with his little manipulative behaviors, but he's not stupid, so he'd get a lot of awards. He'd participate in sports. I want to say it was baseball and soccer. Don't hold me to that, but he was active in the sports. But he would throw tantrums when he wouldn't get his way, and he disdained authority. So by the time Harvey is 14, he gets into a fight with the male social services worker. I don't know what the fight was about, but they take swings at each other, and then it turns into a wrestling match. So I don't know what all that was about, but that was at 14. But mind you, this boy has a chip on his shoulder. So
hold up. This social worker swung back?
They do things different in Pennsylvania, Andrea, in the 80s.
He swung
Apparently, he
back.
said, if your mom ain't going to spank you, I am. Come here, sonny boy. And then they wrestled. I don't know what all the wrestling was about. But around 14 is when Harvey begins thriving off intimidating people and being feared. Like
was he a big kid?
I know. I had wrote it down, but I don't remember.
So you don't know if he's
not
tall?
short. I know he's over 5'10".
At
I don't know.
14?
Well, I don't know how he was all throughout his life, but I know what he grows up to be. But I would say 14, he's probably not short.
I don't know. Some of them men folk don't hit their growth spurts till later.
Andrea.
They don't.
What case have you found where it told you every height marker they were as they grew up?
I have not, but I had that one case that said he was a large boy, and then it said how
That's
big he
because
was at
he was
10.
fat.
No, he was tall. He was almost 6 feet tall at 10.
Fine, Andrea. I don't know how tall he was at 14, but even the puny ones can be feisty, so I don't know what the wrestling was over. But when he's 15, one of his female teachers who was pregnant with twins was afraid of Harvey because of something he said or did. I don't know what made her afraid of him, but she would ask a social worker to sit in the class with her when Harvey was present. So I don't know.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, but he gave her the creeps. So now that same year, Harvey's dad would die of cirrhosis of the liver. Now I'm kind of curious if this is the tipping point in his bad behavior of when he just since he he worshipped his dad and now his dad is gone. Not that he was a good influence, but he lost that. I don't know how to say it, but he was a bad role model, obviously, but he
Kind of
lost that
anchored him.
person. Yeah, that now he probably lost all sense of care of whatever he did care about. But during that same year, he's sent to a residential reform program, which is basically like juvie, after being convicted of assault.
Did he assault another kid?
So they said in 89, which makes him 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got an assault that he's not charged with. They strongly think it's him. He hasn't admitted to it. But I don't know who the assault was on. I don't know what it was over. I just know that year is the same year his dad died that he gets sent to the residential reform program. Now it's also I think I'll get there again, but he's put into some sort of like emotionally disturbed child's program in school. So I think that's one reason that there were social workers present when he was at school.
I feel like he probably had to have social workers present the second he was put on probation.
Probably. Now, when Harvey's 16, he's suspected of attempting to kill a girl he had gone to elementary school with. Her name is Leslie Gearhart, and now this is in 1990. She's 13 and had a friend staying over that evening when somebody breaks in through the screen of her window or her bedroom window and begins beating her with a brick.
Oh
Now,
gosh.
he didn't realize her friend was there. I guess she was on the floor. Starts screaming, and that makes him run off, which essentially saves Leslie's life. Leslie escaped with a fractured skull and a shattered hand.
Gosh, it didn't deform her face at all though, right? Poor baby.
I know, with a brick.
That's awful. I'm glad she had a friend sleep over. Jeez.
Yeah. Now, she is believed to be his first victim, although he will never be charged with that attempted murder.
Can you imagine how scary that would be at her age? And then the person goes
or how
there's
about
no
for her friend? Can you imagine being asleep on somebody's floor and then just waking up to that? Like, she's lucky he didn't bludgeon both of them, and it's just like a complete mess.
Yeah. That's scary though.
Yeah. Now, his first murder victim is Joan Burghart. She's a 29-year-old nurse's aide. Now, Harvey first notices Joan when he catches a glimpse of her undressing through her window. Now, it doesn't say he starts out being a peeping Tom, but I feel like I've never been walking around and then just happen to see somebody naked.
Keep watching.
Yeah. So I feel like he had to have been peeping in some windows, and yeah, that might be when he selected her as somebody he was going to rape. But He would then stalk her for days before raping and bludgeoning her in her home in August 1992. Now, Joan's body isn't discovered for 4 days, and that's only because neighbors make complaints of her radio being on loud for days. So when police find her body on her living room floor, I mean, it's 4 days later. And then they determine she's been stabbed 37, or no, I'm sorry. She had been bludgeoned, not stabbed, 37 times.
Oh my gosh.
Now, even sadder, I don't know why it's even sadder. It's not, I mean, it's just, it makes it sad to me because she didn't get to finish her cookies. But her body laid, her body laid near a plate of cookies that she was eating when he broke into her home.
You're an idiot.
She didn't
Which, by
even
the way,
finish her cookies. It's just, it's sad to me because she was in the safety of her home. She should have been safe. And I mean, her cookies were just still there.
that's like,
It's a sad picture for me, okay? I don't know why you're laughing. It wasn't meant to be funny. It's sadder to me that she didn't even get to finish her cookies.
Claire, when we're done, please do me a favor, go
Go eat a
downstairs and have
cookie.
you a plate of some goddamn cookies, because that is not the more sad part here.
No,
The more sad
that's
part
what I said.
is she should have been safe in her own home. You got a solid point on that one. But over the cookies,
No, okay,
lonely on the
so
plate, that's not a thing.
so I don't mean sadder. That's why I said it not really sadder. It doesn't make this sadder. It's just sad to me to walk into, and that scene has got to be horrifying. But it's not like she thought somebody was creeping around her home. She was sitting down to a place in her living room where she should have been perfectly safe as she felt in that moment, and she should have been able to eat her fucking cookies. Was my point in that to walk into that and be police officers, and it had to have been a disgusting scene to walk into, and then just see the plate of cookies is like, it's a comfort food.
Uh-huh. Hey, question, not to be the dick in the room here, but is
That you
sadder
are.
a word?
Fuck you, Andrea. How about that? That's a
Isn't it
word.
supposed to be
That's
like,
two for you.
isn't it like more sad? Is sadder a word?
Andrea? It's a
You yell at me for not
it's a
asking them their
sad,
questions.
it's a sad plate. No, it's a sad plate of cookies, okay? Next to her bludgeoned 37 times, which is super excessive.
Just a lot.
Now, at this point, Harvey is 17. Can we focus on that? How sad is that? A waste of a human being just killed a nurse's aide who was a
Yeah.
nice lady, I'm sure of it, who didn't deserve to go out by being bludgeoned 37 times and by being raped by this fucker.
Ooh, he raped her too?
Yes.
Jeez.
So
And she didn't get to finish her cookies.
You're an asshole. I'm just saying.
I just like that
She
was
felt safe in those moments before the terror started.
true.
And then I just
would
feel
agree.
sadder for her that she was found because her radio was up loud, to which he cranked up so people didn't hear her screams when he was raping her.
Poor thing.
So you are the dick in the room, lady.
I'm not.
Now, I'm just going to tell you, they have no leads when they find Joan's body. But they're on the hunt, obviously, because this is a pretty brutal murder. Now, there is a gap between his first murder victim and his second, because he gets arrested for burglary in an entirely separate case and is in jail for 8 months, which I thought was pretty crazy because the whole time they're looking for a murderer, the fucker's in custody.
Yeah.
But
That's crazy.
He gets out, so this is near almost a year later, in June 1993. Now, Joan died in August 92, right? So June 1993, Harvey abducts, rapes, and murders a 15-year-old newspaper carrier, Charlotte Schumoyer. Now, early one morning, one of Charlotte's newspaper customers noticed Charlotte's newspaper cart outside her front window, but no Charlotte. Now, she thought this was odd because Charlotte was a very respectable young lady. She was very responsible. So the lady calls the newspaper office, and they can't locate Charlotte either. So then the police are called.
How would they locate her? This is like pre-cell phones.
So I feel like it was one of those, they call her house to see if something happened and she went home. She
Mm,
wasn't at the newspaper place to pick up newspapers, or there wasn't an issue. So I feel like when they called her home and she's not there, well, she's not at the office and she's not at uh, at home. So that was what I figured. That's
I
the
gotcha.
extent of tracking down.
I gotcha.
So that's alarming for the neighborhood. So everybody's kind of out looking for Charlotte. They
Aw.
eventually stumble on her body in a heavily wooded area nearby. They end up finding one of her shoes, is what like leads them that direction, which I think, again, 15, she's doing her newspaper route. She should have been safe there too.
Yeah.
Now, she's also not far from where Joan had lived. Now, poor Charlotte had been stabbed 22 times in the back and the neck. One of them severed her artery. Now, a few days later, Harvey breaks into the home of John and Denise Sam Callie. Now, no one is home, but he makes himself at home and enjoys some of their whiskey before leaving. He also steals a gun from John, but fortunately, nobody's home. Now, June 20th, just 11 days after Charlotte's murder, Harvey breaks into a home a few blocks down. He'd been stalking a woman for a few days who lived there. Now, instead of raping and murdering the woman who was in bed with her boyfriend, so he's like, I guess when he tiptoed in, he was like, oh, whoops, boyfriend's home.
Man,
He
they're
ins-
light sleepers.
I guess.
I hear my dog's toenails clip clop on the floor, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He instead went down the hall and raped her 5-year-old daughter in her bed.
Hmm.
He then tried to kill the little girl by choking her, and he had thought he had been successful when he left, but she did survive. I feel like it's a case of she's got a little tiny neck and his hands are too big, so he choked her to the point of passing out.
That poor baby.
I know, again, should have been safe.
Makes my stomach sick. That poor little girl.
Yes.
I don't like the kid ones, Claire. I don't like them.
Now, 1
I
month
know they
after.
happen. I
Well, I'm
don't like
just
them.
glad for her. I know you seem to have mixed feelings on whether you'd want to be raped or murdered being an option, but I'm
What?
glad.
You want to run that one by me?
When I had asked you, like, I consider people who survive those lucky because they could have been murdered. And you're like, well, I might have different lucks because I don't consider it lucky. Yeah, I'm glad she lived because she's got her whole life and she should be able to put that behind her, hopefully. But if she'd been murdered, that would add more tragedy to this situation.
It
But
sure would. But just
I'm
to
just saying
clarify,
she's
I
lucky.
feel like it's not lucky to have either one happen.
I'm not
Not I'd
saying.
rather be murdered over
I'm
raped. I choose
saying.
option C. None
And
of the
this is
above.
the exact conversation that I'm saying that we had was, I'm not saying I'm searching for either to happen to me. I'm just saying you can get past things if you're not murdered. It's a little permanent if you're murdered, is what I'm trying to get at, okay? Now,
Hmm.
1 month after Charlotte's murder and just 8 days after he had thought he had murdered that 5-year-old girl, Harvey's at it again with his next victim being Jessica Jean Fortney. Now, Jessica is 47 years old and a grandmother who he would beat, rape, and strangle in her living room while her daughter and son-in-law slept on the 3rd floor with their 4 children.
Oh my gosh.
They would end up finding her body early that next morning on the couch next to the TV set.
Oh gosh. Hey, not to backtrack here, but how did that little 5-year-old, like, did she just wake up and go run to her mommy, or did mom, like,
Dude, there's not a lot on that one, but I thought the same thing. I was like, 'cause how would they have, like,
I realize 5-year-olds can communicate, but how do you communicate that?
the boogeyman just put his penis in me and I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen because I'm 5? Yeah, I don't know. I thought
And
of
then
that.
tried to kill me? Or did they find her passed out?
I feel like she had probably substantial bruising around her little neck.
Ugh,
I thought the same thing because I was like, how do you wake your mom up and be like, so this happened?
that makes me so sad.
not to blame the parent or her mom or a boyfriend or anything, but to know that you slept through that.
Yeah, that mm.
Or to know that if boyfriend wouldn't have spent the night, he would have raped and murdered her, and then he might have just still milled on down and raped the little girl and then left her momless.
Or tried to murder her also.
Well, he did. He just wasn't good at it.
It's fucked up. Anyway, carry on. And then he murdered grandma. That's
Well,
also extremely sad, and I cannot imagine having to find grandma dead on the couch.
well, she's 47, so I'm not picturing a grandma. I can't imagine going downstairs and finding my loved one murdered.
She had 4 grandkids, and she's only 43.
47.
Oh, 47. Man,
But it had to have been scarring.
this guy is a piece of shit. I was just trying to do the math and see how old the oldest grandkid might be. And because realistically, if they're anything like my kids, they get out of bed super duper early and go moseying on through the house.
That could have been who stumbled on it first.
And can you imagine that? That would be horrifying.
Yeah.
Of course.
So,
All the poor kids in this case. Damn you, Claire.
Harvey's next victim is Denise Sam Calley, who he raped and brutalized in her home. Now, she was home alone because her husband was out of town. Now, he gains entry through a window that he had left unlocked. If you remember, this is the house where he stole the gun and drank their whiskey. So, on his way out, he left the window unlocked when he left. So, I don't even know if they knew that he had been in there at this point.
Not to victim shame, but they need to keep better track of those guns.
Well, I know you don't have any at your house, but I don't look at every one of ours every single day. So I know we have dogs, so I know people don't just mill around in the house and take our guns. But if we didn't have dogs, I still don't think every day I'd take inventory of the guns.
True. And I'm
So-
assuming they don't have kids in the house. Otherwise, hopefully the guns would have been locked up, not just laying about.
Yeah. Anyway, so he breaks in and is in her home. Denise is home alone because her husband's out of town. So she's asleep when she wakes up to a noise coming from her closet. Now she gets up to flee when Harvey grabs a hold of her. Now there is a struggle. I don't know at what point, but she does bite his ass.
Heck yeah.
And she manages to fight her way out of the house. But Harvey is right on her heels, grabs hold of her again, and wrestles her to the ground. Then punches, strangles, and rapes her. Now, during this attack, again, some point, whether it's in the house or outside, she bites him hard enough in the arm to leave a mark that will later be used as evidence against him.
Good for her.
Now all this noise, because she's screaming, it's a hell of a fight, does attract attention from the neighbors, and Harvey flees back into the house and out the back door.
Wait, you said he strangled her. Does she live or die?
No, she's alive.
Okay.
He still was trying to strangle the raper. Like, she's putting up a hell of a fight with the biting and the kicking and the, she's putting some serious hurt on the boy.
She's fighting for her life, quite literally.
Well, she's doing good because she made enough noise that the neighbors wake up, and Harvey flees out the back door of the house.
Good for her.
Now, Denise ends up calling the police, who discover a butcher's knife that he had taken from her kitchen, wrapped in a napkin outside her bedroom door.
Oh my gosh.
How scary is that?
I would move.
So Denise installs an alarm system on the house, obviously not feeling safe in her own home. Now, 3 weeks later, on July 19th, someone tries to break into her home through the back door and sets off the new alarm. Now, after that attempt, police placed an officer at her home, with Denise still home, with the hopes that if she continues about like normal, that he'll return again.
What kind of sick fucker continuously stalks the same woman?
So I think he was twisted. I think he was mad she beat him. I think he was mad that she bit him. I think he wanted to finish her off is what I think this case was. But how scary would that be to know? Like, I imagine installing the alarm, that's a must, because after that shit, not having anybody sneak in the window. But just I feel like it'd be a while of not feeling safe in your own home, even with the alarm, and just feeling like somebody's watching you or somebody's been in your house. And then to have somebody set it off and know that all those feelings are right. I don't know. I don't even know if moving would help, because then it's a new place, something you don't know, and just as scary.
But then again, it could also be like a fresh start,
I
because
don't feel
everything that you thought was known and safe has now been tainted and is no longer safe.
well,
Or
are strange things not also the factor of
I would take strange over
scary?
tainted.
You said taint.
You're 5.
Let's
You're
see.
such an idiot.
Now, Harvey did play into their hand and attempted to break in for a third time on July 31st. Now, the
Wouldn't it be a
officer,
4th? He stole the gun, raped her, attempted to break in, got caught by the alarm. Wouldn't this be the 4th time?
well, fine, Andrea, it's a fourth time. Sadder isn't a word. Fine. Anyway, it's on July 31st, jackass. The officer
That is not called for.
the officer identified himself and told Harvey to stop. Obviously, Harvey did not stop, and instead drew the gun he had stolen from the Sam Callies and started firing at the officer, who pulled his gun, and they exchanged shots. Now, during all this huffle and buffle, Harvey tries to flee. He does end up getting nicked. He also gets nicked by the glass when he's trying to go out the broken window or the door, or whatever glass he goes through. He's eventually tracked down at a hospital when he seeks treatment for his wounds. So, yay, he's caught. Now, evidence against him is, after analysis on the victims, semen left on all the victims matched Harvey Miguel Robinson. Now, also during his trial, forensic psychiatrists would testify that Harvey was dependent on drugs and alcohol, which caused him to have visual and auditory hallucinations.
No.
Now, they would have a footprint on find a footprint on Charlotte's cheek that was a bruise from the bottom of Harvey's sneaker, which that little newspaper girl, he stepped on her face hard enough to bruise it.
That's disgusting. This is where I'm solid for an eye for an eye. Somebody needs to stomp on his face.
Now, in addition to the footprint, there's also the bite mark that Denise left on his arm. A forensic dentist who made a mold of the woman's bite compared it with a photograph of the mark on his arm and concluded that they did match. Now, Harvey would also claim he suffered from severe frontal lobe injury that caused brain damage, and it was unconstitutional to sentence him to death. Now, the chief of prosecutions noted, now this is way after he's sentenced, but I thought it was funny. He had been assaulted in prison in 2006 and suggested that his alleged brain damage occurred then, not prior. No, Harvey would claim that the guards beat him up. He did end up having a swollen eye, cuts all over his lips, and blurred vision after the attack. He even needed spinal surgery. So I feel like somebody did step on his face for you. So
sounds like they stomped on his back.
I just thought it was funny that they're like, maybe your head injury came from that. Like, some of these prosecutors and judges sometimes, they're pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, I like when they don't see, where they're not stopped by these guys' stupidness, and they're like, oh, you might have a point. And they're just like, yeah, no, you're a piece of shit. 100%.
Now, at no point does anyone ever come up with a reason why he chose his victims or why he even chose to rape and murder to begin with.
Because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. And to make things even more fucked up, so on the night he got into the shootout with the police when he returned for the 4th time to Denise's house to kill her, he had been at a party with his girlfriend and his friends from school.
He has a girlfriend?
Thank you. He left the party early and told them all that he'd meet up with them later, gets into the car that his mother had bought and provided for him to drive to Denise's house. He would later... He would later tell police that he believed he could kill her and resume his normal life.
And he was mad that she kicked his ass and he could not explain his boo-boos.
Yeah. But it's just like, he has friends, he has a car, he has a girlfriend. Like, I realize his dad, abusive alcoholic, but that's no excuse to do all the things he did.
No, and he knew what he was doing was wrong because he was trying to be sneaky about it.
Yeah. Now, the defense tried to show that Harvey had poor role models in his life, one of whom was his father. The other was that half brother that he would follow around on his probation. Now, George Robbins was 25 during the trial. He was also in a state prison for holding up a Blockbuster video store the month after Harvey was arrested, who, by the way, had a criminal record that started at the age of 12. And in 1991, that he had just been released on an attempted murder charge. Now, he blames all of this stuff happening because he was stressed over Harvey and what was going on with him, and it turned him back to drugs. And that's why he robbed the Blockbuster store of the $4,000. He also robbed the woman who was in the Blockbuster store and smacked around the clerk because he was worried for his brother.
Right. That makes a whole lot of sense. That whole family sounds like
Bad seeds?
Yeah. I was gonna say they needed a mini flood, just take them on out.
Well, he was one of 3 people, by the way, who robbed the Blockbuster, which for those youngins, those used to be where you'd go to rent movies because the internets didn't provide them at your fingertips.
Sure was.
Now, Harvey's mom was questioned at trial on how she
How the fuck she's got 2 kids that are criminals?
I was going to put that well, keep in mind, one is the half brother, so that was the kid from another
man or another woman?
Another man.
Oh. Okay, so they still sheer done raised 2 criminals.
Oh no, another woman. That's not her son. That's apparently the Harvey Miguel Robinson Sr. He's spitting out some bad tadpoles.
Why does she have a half
She
brother?
didn't.
Oh.
She did. Harvey's half brother.
I understand that. I thought they were in the same household since he went around with him
No,
to probation and stuff. Because I can tell you without a doubt that if one of my children had a half sibling who was going to probation, I would not be sending my young, impressionable child along with said criminal child.
So the way I pictured it happening was when Harvey was with his dad on the weekend or was over there during maybe the summer or something like that. And brother was there, that he's just like, hey, take your little brother with you because I'm going to be binge drinking on the sofa. Kind of scenarios is what I pictured, and that's why that was his half brother.
I gotcha.
Anywho, so Harvey's mom would be questioned at trial on how she could have not seen the bloody clothes that her son surely must have had discarded after the killings. After all, he lived with her. So Harvey's mom admitted seeing a bite mark on her son's arm one time, but admitted she didn't question it.
Her son was into some kinky stuff with his girlfriend.
Yeah, she didn't want to ask questions.
Now,
that was yes, that was a bite mark made by Denise, who he had raped and that had survived. Harvey would plead guilty to the rape, so prosecutors didn't have to use the piece of evidence, the little mouth bite thing, that they had prepared for that case. Also in the trial, an exchange between the prosecutor and Harvey's mom revealed the prosecutor's puzzlement over his mom's apparent ignorance of her son's other life and problems that manifested themselves when Harvey was a child. And also when school officials placed him in classes for social and emotionally disturbed children, which I didn't know was a thing.
I didn't either.
Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a puppet show. So the prosecutor, I feel like his voice is going to be a little deeper. And then his mom will be a little bit higher pitched. I don't feel like she's Southern, so it won't be this one. It's just going to be a regular voice. A little windy.
Wait. can I just point out that they're questioning her ignorance, but then I feel like that's a bit of ignorance on the prosecution side of things, simply because if you look at who she chose to marry and have a child with, she chose to turn a blind eye to
A
that
lot.
situation. So I don't see her paying hardcore attention to the fact that her son possibly is following in his Paula's footsteps and being a criminal.
I feel like she wanted to believe he was
She
just
was
a
good.
troubled teen and he'd get out of it once his testosterone levels leveled out.
Ew. Okay.
Do you remember as early as first grade, Miss Brown? You did know that he was fighting with his peers. In school? No, I wasn't there.
All right. She's an asshole.
That's why I picked it, because I was like, what the fuck? Do you remember, with respect to the defendant, talking about how he was hard to handle even as a child, always having temper tantrums or fits? He did have temper tantrums, even as a young child. Yes, which child doesn't have temper tantrums, even ones that aren't in SED, which is the socially and emotionally disturbed classes? Which child grows up to rape and murder 3 women? You tell me. I will. Your son. Which I was like, burn.
Oh,
I wish I
shit.
could see the look on her face, because that's like, he walked right into that one. Now, the prosecution said after the trial that he felt Harvey's mother had to share in what had happened, and he felt maybe his feelings that she was responsible on part had come out a little bit during that. But I agree with him. I feel like she was blind to it, and she just didn't want to believe he was as bad as he really was.
Well, because that's his parents don't want to believe the worst in their kids. You got to open those peepers and see, hey, my kid's a demon spawn and I need some extra help, and this extra help ain't working. I don't know. What are you supposed to do?
And
Hey,
that,
police
yeah.
officer, I'm trying to get the help for my kid, but he's a little bit on the psycho side. He hasn't officially committed a crime that I am aware of, but please, can you do something? I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah. But he wrestled his social worker. They'd be
Yes. What
like,
the heck?
I
They got into
like,
themselves a nice little a bitch slap fest, and then rolled around on the ground together. How is
well,
that not a red flag?
well, and the thing that I imagine was frustrating, not to give her an out, is he was in sports. He did do good in school. So it's just like,
So,
I mean, it's not like
can
he
you
was a loner. I mean, I don't know what to say the right route would have been for this little shit brain.
so you know how like they say if you've got a kid that's like super hyperactive or like lacks a little bit of discipline or whatever. I'm not talking about extreme cases, but like putting them in taekwondo or sports or something to channel that extra energy and teach them discipline and team
Yeah.
sports and all that crap. Well, he was already doing that. Can you imagine how much more of a monster
If he
he
knew
would have
kung
been?
fu.
Well, no,
Oh,
but if he didn't have a way to channel all that extra
yeah.
energy, he would have been an even bigger monster.
Well, that's why I wasn't sure if maybe some of this snapped when his dad died.
Did he stop with the sports, I wonder, when his dad died?
I don't know. You can ask him.
I'm
Spoiler
good.
alert, he's still alive.
I'm good. He can keep his teeny
So,
tiny little pecker and his,
pants.
I was going to say his bite
Are
ridden
you
arm,
saying
but
he
that
can?
didn't make no sense.
No, no, it didn't. Like he can keep it all together to himself. I don't
He
know.
can keep it and share it in the prison with his stomped on head.
I did kind of laugh when he got beat up in prison and his lips were cut because I was.
That's some
head
aggressive dick sucking there, buddy. You ain't supposed to
to
cut your
use your
lips.
teeth.
That's why his head got stomped on. Like, don't use teeth, little bitch.
That's why when you said you hope you wish somebody would do that to him, and I was like sitting here squirming, like he's about to. But so Harvey was convicted and imposed separate death sentences for all 3 murders
Good.
in November 1994. Now, Gladys Burkhart, Jones' mom, the first victim, says she can no longer afford to dwell on the murderous specter of a man who killed her daughter. When Gladys and her husband Stanley heard that the governor had set an execution date for Harvey for April 4th, Gladys said, "This is something that's been waiting to happen, that this monster is put out of this world." Now, in 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to prohibit death penalties for juveniles under the age of 18. I don't know why they had to specify that, because that's a juvenile. But when the crime is committed under 18. Now, Harvey was sentenced to death for his crimes, but as of April 2006, Harvey's execution had been stayed. He was later resentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Joan Burkhart because he was 17 when he committed that crime. Now, on December 14th, 2012, Harvey agreed to waive his appeal right to Charlotte's case in exchange for a life sentence. And then in December 2013, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court upheld his death penalty in the Jessica Jean Fortney murder. And in 2019, a Pennsylvania judge urged Robinson to consider donating his brain to science, calling it the one gift you could give.
That is not a gift.
He muttered something about he didn't think that would be accepted with his newfound religion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Harvey was convicted of raping and trying to kill that 5-year-old little girl. So even if all 3 murder convictions were somehow thrown out, Harvey would still remain in prison for more than 100 years for all his other convictions, including the rapes of his victims. Now, I will say Denise did pass away in 2021. I don't know why I said the date that way, but Denise did pass away in 2021. Now, she will forever be a hero for stopping this piece of shit and going along with the police. Because I imagine her husband didn't like the idea of her staying in the house to bait this fucker.
Yeah. No.
Because what if he grabbed her when she got out of her car to go into the house, kind of thing? Like, there were plenty of scenarios that she could have died at the hands of this monster. But because of her, he was stopped in his tracks. And they didn't have any leads on him. So he would have just kept going along.
Yeah. So
but I'm sad
disgusting.
for her that she didn't get to see him executed. But
yeah, at least he was caught.
Dude, I think it was something like only 3 prisoners have been executed in Pennsylvania since 1978. So the odds are he's going to just die in prison.
Why do they keep giving out the death sentence if they're not going to actually follow through?
I say send him to Texas. They know how to finish him off. But that's Harvey Miguel Robinson, and he is still trying to appeal his death penalty sentence. Now, mind you, the prosecution is also trying to pursue setting a date for that. But as of right now, that's the limbo they're doing the back and forth of.
I wonder how many more appeals he has left.
I don't know. But I don't feel like he'll ever be executed because, again, 3 people on death row since 1978. That's ridiculous.
He must have started lacking them beatings and dick sucking moments, because I can tell you, if I was in prison getting head injuries and lip cuttings and whatever else, I would not be petitioning to try to stay alive. No,
he might have
fast forward this shit.
Maybe he lost some teeth, so now he won't cut his lips anymore.
He lost his gag reflex.
Well, I was going to say that either he doesn't have tips and has learned to suck some Pippi good, or
Pippi is in Pippi Longstocking.
Maybe they are pulling his hair. You don't know, but or maybe he just spreads his cheeks. So,
oh God,
maybe that's how he got out of the face fuckings. He's trying to decorate his hiney hole. But that's all I got for that.
I'm quite grateful that's all you got. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.